Our phones, they're basically our lives, right? They're our diaries, our photo albums, our navigators, you name it. But what happens when that life becomes part of a criminal investigation? Well, that's when your phone turns into something else entirely, a digital witness. And today, we are diving deep into the incredible world of mobile forensics, how investigators make that witness talk.
Seriously, just stop and think about that for a second. If your phone was the only thing left at a crime scene, what story would it tell? All those location pings, your late-night texts, your call logs, even the stuff you thought you got rid of for good. It all adds up to paint this incredibly detailed picture. And for an investigator, that picture can be the one thing that cracks a case wide open.
So yeah, these days, it's pretty much a given. Nearly every crime scene has a digital component. The question isn't if a phone was involved, it's how. And that's where things get tricky. Investigators have these amazing ways of making a device talk, but they have to do it just right. They need to pull out that story legally and carefully without changing a single byte of data.
And this brings us to the formal definition: mobile device forensics. It's really a two-step dance. First, you've got the recovery part, just getting the data off the device, which, believe me, is a massive technical hurdle on its own. Then comes the analysis, sifting through all that data, piecing together the digital breadcrumbs to figure out what actually went down. It's like being part digital archaeologist, part classic detective.
Okay, so picture this. An investigator shows up to a crime scene and spots a phone. The second they see it, this invisible clock starts ticking down. Those first few moments, the first moves they make, they are absolutely critical. One wrong move, and poof, that digital evidence could be gone for good.
Now, this is where things get really interesting, because the playbook here is kind of counterintuitive. Step 1, if the phone's off, you leave it off. Don't touch it. Why? Because turning it on might trigger a lock screen or even start an encryption process that locks you out forever. Now, if it's on, your number one priority is to keep it on. You slap a power bank on it immediately because if that battery dies, you're back to square one. And if you hit the jackpot and find it unlocked, boom, straight to airplane mode. That's so important because it cuts the phone off from any network, stopping the bad guys from sending a remote wipe command to destroy all the evidence.
And to add another layer of protection, once that initial triage is done, the device goes straight into one of these, a Faraday bag. This thing is basically a high-tech evidence bag. Think of it like a cone of silence for electronics. It blocks every signal, Wi-Fi, cellular, Bluetooth, you name it. It creates this perfect secure bubble around the phone, making sure nothing can get in or out while it's on its way to the lab.
All right, so the phone is safe and sound, bagged up and in the lab. Now what? Well, now investigators face their first big hurdle, that darn lock screen. It's crazy to think that a simple 4-digit PIN or a swipe pattern could be the one thing standing between solving a case and hitting a complete dead end.
So how do they get past it? Well, they've got some pretty slick tools up their sleeves. For an Android phone, they can often use special software to boot the device into recovery mode, which can help bypass the lock. iPhones are a different beast altogether. For them, the real golden ticket is something called a lockdown record. See, if an iPhone has ever been plugged into and synced with a computer, it trusts that computer. Investigators can actually use that digital handshake, that trust certificate, to pull data off the phone without ever needing the passcode.
So let's say they're in. They've bypassed the lock screen. Now the real deep dive begins. And we're not just talking about downloading the photos and contacts you can see on the screen. No, this is about getting everything.
And that really begs the question, right? Just how deep can they go? Is this just a surface-level peek, or can they dig all the way down to the digital bedrock of the phone? While the answer really comes down to the kind of data extraction they perform.
And this library analogy is just perfect for explaining the two main types. On one hand, you've got a logical acquisition. Think of this like asking a librarian for a list of all the books in the library. It's a copy of all the files and folders you can normally see. It's useful for sure, but then there's physical acquisition. This isn't just the list of books. It's like getting a magical, perfect copy of the entire library, every book, every shelf, every torn-out page, and even the erased pencil marks in the margins. We're talking a bit-by-bit copy of the entire memory, including all that juicy deleted data.
But here's the catch. Getting that full physical copy isn't easy. You can't just plug a phone in and say, "Give me everything." The phone's operating system is specifically designed to stop you from doing that. To get around it, investigators have to find a way to get privileged control, to become the ultimate admin of the device. For Android devices, that process is called rooting. It's exactly what it sounds like. They're getting to the root of the system. It basically breaks all the digital locks and chains the manufacturer put in place, giving the investigator root access. That's the highest level of permission you can get. And with that, every single file, whether it's hidden or not, is suddenly fair game.
Now, the iOS equivalent is something you've probably heard of: jailbreaking. It gets you to the same place, full admin control, but man, it comes with a huge risk. A lot of jailbreaking methods need an internet connection to work, and that creates this small, terrifying window of opportunity where a remote wipe command could come through and destroy all the evidence. It's a real high-stakes gamble.
But what if the phone is just obliterated? Smashed to bits, soaked in water, totally dead. When all those software tricks are useless, the forensic work gets a lot more physical. We're talking about something that looks more like microsurgery.
Yeah, these are the absolute last resort methods. First, you have JTAG forensics. This is where technicians literally solder tiny wires onto specific points on the phone's circuit board to talk directly to the memory chip. Then there's the even more extreme option, chip-off forensics. This is exactly what it sounds like. They physically remove the flash memory chip from the board and pop it into a special reader. It's incredibly delicate work. One slip and the chip is toast, but it means they can potentially pull data from a phone that's been completely destroyed.
Okay, so we've seen how they get the data, from clever software hacks all the way to, actual surgery on the circuit board. But now let's talk about what they're looking for. What's the prize? The phone itself is obviously a goldmine of information, but it's not the only piece of this digital puzzle.
And let's start with this little guy, the SIM card. It's so easy to overlook, but it's super important. Its main job is to identify you, the subscriber, to the network. It's like your phone's ID card. And for an investigation, the info stored on this tiny chip can be pure gold.
Okay, I know this looks like a bunch of technical alphabet soup, but trust me, each one of these is a critical clue. The IMSI, that's your unique ID on any cell network in the world. The ICCID is just the SIM card's own serial number. Together, those two link a specific person's account to that physical chip. The MSISDN is just a fancy way of saying your phone number. And get this, sometimes old text messages can be found right on the SIM, even if you thought you deleted them from your phone. For an investigator, this little chip is a direct line to a person's real-world identity.
And here is maybe the most important part of all. A criminal can smash their phone, delete every message, even burn the SIM card. But there's one thing they can't erase: the records kept by the cell phone company. The network itself is the ultimate silent witness, and it never, ever forgets.
With a warrant, police can get their hands on what's called a call detail record, or CDR. Just think of it as the complete logbook of your phone's life, held by your carrier. It shows every call you made, every call you received, when it happened, how long it lasted, all of it. But the real game changer is usually that last piece of info, the cell tower ID. Every single time your phone makes a call or sends a text, the network logs which tower it was connected to. This is huge because it lets investigators place a suspect in a specific location at a specific time, building a timeline of their movements that's incredibly hard to argue with.
And sometimes it's just one tiny detail from that record that blows a case wide open. A 42-minute phone call to a known associate just minutes after a crime took place. See, that's not just data anymore. That's evidence. That's the story.
It all comes back to this classic quote from Edmond Locard, one of the pioneers of forensics. His big idea was that every contact leaves a trace. Now, he was talking about physical stuff, fibers, footprints, But wow, has that idea taken on a whole new meaning in our digital world? Every single call, every text, every GPS ping, it all leaves a trace.
Which kind of leaves us with this one big thought to chew on. We just walked through all these mind-blowing techniques investigators use to make a phone tell its secrets. It really makes you think, doesn't it? In this day and age, every single one of us is walking around with a silent witness right in our pocket, recording our story 24/7. So, the final question is, what story will yours tell?